You're listening to the Toolstation Western League podcast with Ian Knockholds and Tom Hiscott.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 25 of the Toolstation Western League podcast with me, Ian Knockholds. And I am delighted to welcome on the line Tom Hiscott, the editor of the Western League Bulletin. Hello, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Good to speak to you again. How you doing?
I'm not bad. I am not bad. I don't think we've ever had such an action-packed blockbuster fixture lineup to talk about than on this week's podcast. Do you? I mean, we've got all the fun of the FA Vase, and it's great to see that three of our sides managed to get so deep into that competition. And of course, we've had very full and entertaining fixtures in both the Premier and the First Division. So it really is a sort of a golden era for the Western League at the moment.
Something like that, yeah. There's lots going on Saturday. It was sort of difficult to keep up with everything. Obviously, the big cup ties, as you mentioned, and then plenty of goings on in the two leagues, and in particular, I am really enjoying the First Division title race this season.
Yes, no, as am I. I think absolutely fascinating stuff. I mean, I get to watch First Division football from the wrong end of the table. I was at Devises Town this weekend, as I normally am when they're at home. To be honest with you, I did want to get along to the Bradford Town, Leighton Town FA Vase game. I know we're going to be talking about that in a minute, but I haven't been in the best of health, so I thought I'd choose the more diplomatic route and stand at the window in the Devises clubhouse in the warm and watch another defeat. But anyway, we won't go into that. We won't go into that on this week's podcast. We will kick off though with the fixtures on Saturday, the 8th of February, and we are going to talk about the FA Vase. Three of our sides were in action. Of course, we talked about this the last time we featured the Vase. All three sides were at home. Fantastic opportunity for progression. We're going to kick off with Bitton. The visitors were Sutton Common Rovers. 209 saw this one, Tom, and a great way to kick off our coverage of the Vase on this episode.
Absolutely, history made there by Bitton, reaching the last eight of the FA Vase for the first time ever. A 2-1 win over Sutton Common Rovers in front of a healthy crowd, as you say. Really impressive afternoon all round for them. And Josh Egan, he was very much the star man for Bitton. His first goal, which propped up on Twitter within moments of going in. So yeah, pretty good effort. I can't remember who posted that, whether it was the club themselves or whoever, but a devilish free kick from outside the area, swung into the top corner, giving the Sutton keeper no chance. So yeah, putting Bitton ahead in the 26th minute. And then 15 minutes from time, Egan struck again to make it 2-0. He played in by Karen Rendell, and put Bitton 2 goals to the good with just over 10 minutes to go. Sutton Common Rovers did manage to pull one back. They set up a nervy finish. I think it was Adam Allen scoring from close range, but Bitton held out and move on to the quarterfinals for the first time ever.
Well, our next game is Bradford Town against Leighton Town. Of course, Bradford in recent seasons have wowed us with their very impressive FA Vase runs, and none more impressive than the run that they were on in this season up to the 5th round. But unfortunately, Tom, Bradford will be progressing no more.
No, indeed. Another really big crowd. I think it was 463. I've managed to find that attendance figure today. We're there to watch this one, so it was definitely a big crowd down there. But unfortunately, Bradford just coming unstuck against Leighton, as you mentioned. They were 2-0 down just before half time when Matty Morris he did score at the end of the first half for the Bobcats to give them a good opportunity in the second half. But they fell short, unfortunately, as I say. Leighton scoring a third to put the result beyond doubt, and it was the end of the road for Bradford, unfortunately.
Well, we finish our FA Vase coverage with Plymouth Parkway. They were at home to West Auckland Town, the bookies' favourites for the tournament going into this competition.
I did not know that.
Well, there you go.
News to me.
I did notice in the week that Plymouth Argyle were very keen to get behind their very close city neighbours, Parkway, to encourage their supporters to get behind them, and indeed that might have had something to do with the monster crowd that watched this game at Ballitho Park. Tom, it was an epic encounter. It had all the drama of Downton Abbey. Take us through it.
Yeah, indeed. Parkway joining Bitton in the last 8 in front of 671 there at Plymouth Park on Saturday afternoon. And the home side had to do it the hard way. They had to come from behind. Parkway started the game really well. They had an effort cleared off the line inside the first minute, so nearly taking the earliest of leads. But unfortunately, soon after that, Amar Puruel managed to turn the ball home to put West Auckland in front. So giving Parkway a bit of a tough challenge to come back. But then with half time on the horizon, they managed to get an equaliser. Rob Farkins reacting quickest to a loose ball in the area to prod home, making it 1-1 at the break. So that was an important goal, obviously setting up a second half, which Parkway managed to win by 1-0. But it came the hard way. Adam Carter, obviously doing amazing things so far this season for them in terms of goals. He had an opportunity from the penalty spot 10 minutes into the second half, but that was blazed over the bar. The second goal eventually coming for Parkway, and it was a low finish from Billy Palfrey, helping them complete the turnaround. And as I say, a massive crowd, and massive congratulations to Parkway and Bitton, obviously, are now in the last 8.
And we'll have a look at that draw, which happened on Monday, the 10th of February at lunchtime. We'll have a look at that draw in a minute. But before we move on, the first of our featured interviews will be with Lee Hobbs, the manager of Plymouth Parkway. Now, Lee has already been on the podcast a couple of times this season. His side, of course, going incredibly well at the top of the Premier Division, and of course in the Vase. Now, if you remember at the last round of the Vase, we did speak to Dan Langdon, the manager of Bitton, after their successful win in that competition. And I do like to feature our Western League sides when they do triumph in this competition. It's wonderful that two teams are still involved at the quarter-final stage. It's history making for Plymouth Parkway as well. So I thought this was a wonderful opportunity to get back in touch with Lee Hobbs to talk about that match. And we started off by talking about how much Lee knew about West Auckland before the game.
We had them watched twice within their domestic league games, and we scrolled through their last 4 games of footage, and we put together a video analysis presentation with the players on Wednesday night, so everyone had a clear picture in their mind of what to expect, what we were going into, what their patterns of play were, where we felt we could win the game. So we left no stone unturned, really, mate, with regards to your preparation, which, to be fair, I think at this stage of the competition, you have to dig deep for all of that, and because obviously the teams are very, very superior, and if you don't do your research and you don't do your homework, then you can leave yourself wide open by going in blind and coming up short.
Given how much effort you'd put into preparing for the game, I mean, did you feel that it was all unravelling before you as you went 1-0 down?
It was against the run of play, if I'm perfectly honest. And the first half was a little bit nip and tuck, which I felt we edged, but we had 2 or 3 good chances before that, and over the balance of play in the whole fixture, we had enough chances to win 2 football matches. So, for me, West Auckland played their part, but I feel 2-1 flattered them a little bit, really.
Because going into that match, I think that they were the bookies' favourites to win the competition outright. I mean, was that something that you were aware of before the game?
Yeah, of course it was. Obviously, the northern teams, because of their pedigree within the competition, they're always ranked higher than most, because obviously the competition has been won from that division. I can't calculate how many times, but I know it's a fair few over the last 10 years, so naturally they are always favourites. But listen, we knew we was at home, we knew what we were getting out of them, and I had a full strength to choose from, and to choose from, and my players turned up properly and got the job done.
The strength of the Northern League is still very relevant, isn't it? Because of course the next round has been drawn, and you are away to Hebburn Town. I mean, this time you're going to be on the wrong end of an 800-mile round trip.
Yeah, listen, it's exciting, ain't it? You go into big cities like Newcastle, hitting your wits. Obviously, the logistics. It is what it is here, and I've said that to you before. Whether we choose to fly or whether we choose to go by coach, I'm sure over the next week to 10 days we'll come up with a plan which is the best fit for the preparation of the players, where we believe we'll stand them in the good stead to go into a job. But listen, to win this competition, you've got to beat the best to get to the big one, and we'll go there with no fear, mate. We know we're as good as anyone left in this competition, and yes, we're away from home, but I've told you before, we're good on the road, mate. And if you're going to go out of the competition, then to go out of the competition in a city like Newcastle, then that can only be a good thing with what you can do after.
Well, I mean, it really will be an incredible away day for your fans, and I know that the whole of the Western League family will be watching you and keeping their fingers crossed for you. Now, I know you don't want to reflect necessarily on what you've achieved this far, because you're clearly very focused on wanting to progress in this competition, and that's fantastic. But it is worth reflecting that this is the first time in Plymouth Parkway's history that the club have got through to the quarter-finals of the Vase. What does that mean to the club?
Oh, it's a special occasion. To be fair, the supporters all week leading up to the West Auckland game, and the press and the media coverage that we've had surrounding it, it's been phenomenal. And they played their part on Saturday as well. Unfortunately enough, we can't reward them with another home tie. But like I said before, we've only had one home tie within the previous 5 rounds. So if we're going to win this competition here, and we're going to have to do it the hard way, the draws haven't been kind to us right throughout. But listen, it's something to look forward to on the back burner. We need to stay grounded, and that there's for later on, and now we just need to concentrate on our league form.
Well, I know from our last conversation that you're not worried about this good run in the Vase affecting your league form, but of course it is interesting to note that Bradford, of course, who weren't successful in getting through their FA Vase tie, now they're out of that competition. Does that concern you at all, that they're able to focus all of their attention now on the Western League?
No, not really, mate. We wanted Bradford and every Western League club to progress as far as they possibly could, because it's a fantastic advert for South West football. But unfortunately for them, their run's come to an end. They've got, obviously, other things to concentrate on now, with not just the league yet. They're obviously still active in the Legislative, and I'm not sure if they're in any county cups. So, listen, it is what it is, and to be successful, this is what it is, and you can't sit and whine and whinge about it, and you just got to deal with it as it comes, and that's one thing that we're prepared and ready to do. Because the reality is, most clubs, every club within our league would give a right hand to be us, being pushing for league titles and in the quarterfinals of the FA Vase. So you can't see it as a hindrance, mate. You've got to see it only as a positive.
I don't think there's going to be too many people disagreeing with you there, Lee. I mean, the games are coming thick and fast for you now in the league, aren't they? Aren't you? You've got Buckland away this week, then it's Bridgewater, and then it's Clevedon. That's 3 games in 9 days, and none of them are going to be easy for you, are they?
It's 3 games that we could arguably lose, Ian, if we don't turn up properly. But to be fair, mate, these big games is what you're in football, in Devon derbies, and we owe Bridgewater one, obviously, for turning us over earlier on in the season. And Clevedon, obviously, are a fantastic young outfit as well. But listen, they won't relish playing us either. So if we can come through that with a good return of points, then hopefully it'll stand us in good stead going forward. But listen, we're up for any game, mate, and just bring them on. It's as simple as that.
And my thanks to Lee Hobbs for his time. So, having rounded up then the progress that our sides made in the 5th round of the FA Vase, it's only right to reflect upon a draw for the quarter-finals that took place at 1 o'clock on TalkSport 2 for the quarter-finals of this year's FA Vase. Now, we don't worry too much at this stage about how the other teams got on. We're really going to focus on our member side. So kicking off then, Tom, with Bitton, who did they get in the next round of the competition?
So they are away at Wroxham, not Wrexham, but Wroxham, and that is up near Norwich. So yeah, an away tie for Bitton, but yeah, one they can look forward to, definitely.
Yeah, Wroxham are an Eastern Counties League side, and they have lost only 4 times this season, and only once of those has been at home. So Bitton are going to have their work cut out. And of course, we've also got Plymouth Parkway. Now, in the last round, of course, West Auckland travelled nearly 800 miles in a round trip, in fairness, to get to Parkway. Who have Parkway got this time round?
It's almost like they're going to be making the reverse trip. You're right. They are away. They take on Hebburn Town, which is up in the northeast, up in South Tyneside. So yeah, a pretty pretty long trip for Parkway to look forward to. But well, obviously going great guns in League and Cup this year, so they'll be they'll be full of confidence, I'm sure, going into that encounter. And obviously both of those games on the 29th of February, so plenty to look forward to over the next couple of weeks, previewing those games.
Yeah, not ideal that both sides are away from home.
No, indeed.
But Parkway can take some comfort from the fact that Hebburn have been beaten 7 times in the league so far this season, and 3 of those have been at home. They currently sit second in the Northern League, but clearly not undefeatable. And we know just how formidable the Plymouth outfit can be. Now, moving on to the Premier Division. A busy fixture list, plenty of goals on offer, and there were 5 to talk about at Hallen, where the visitors were high-flying Exmouth Town.
Yeah, absolutely, and it was most of them going to the home team. I think this was the game we picked out. Obviously, a couple of the top sides in cup action. So, in terms of Premier Division fixture, I think this was the pick of the bunch on Saturday afternoon, and Hallen making a bit of a statement, I would say, a 4-1 win. It was very much a stunning second half performance, which led them to victory. No goals to report from the opening 45 minutes, but then Hallen very much shooting into life after the break, scoring 4 goals in the space of 23 minutes to make it 4 home wins on the bounce for them now. Scott Thomas breaking the deadlock before Matt Davis then headed them 2 goals in front a couple of minutes later. Kyle Thomas, he's been on an excellent run of form recently. He made it 3-0. Before Aaron Robbins, likewise, like Thomas himself, is having a pretty good run in front of goal. He made it 4-0 soon after. Exmouth did manage to get a consolation, but it wasn't to be for them. And Hallen, dizzy heights of up into third spot following this win. So fantastic afternoon for Hallen, and a tough one for Exmouth.
Ray Johnson's Blue and White Army doing
absolutely.
very well indeed. We also will have a look at one of the other high-flying Devon clubs. Of course, Tavistock have come into the Western League this season and have pulled up a fair few trees, it would be fair to say. But they came unstuck on a visit to Street in Somerset.
They did. An 11-match winning run they brought with them as well, Tavistock. So taking on mid-table Street, probably I think most would have gone with Tavistock racking up another victory, but it wasn't to be. And Street, it was they who took away the points. Leighton Thomas, he's one of the leading scorers in the division so far this season. He bagged another one for the home side, and it was also Cameron Andrews. He's another one who's having a decent season. So both of those two on the score sheet at the Tannery Ground, and finished Street 2, Tavistock 0.
Another job, another saving. Brought to you by Toolstation.
Is this all the receipts?
Yes, boss.
For everything we got from Toolstation?
Yeah, why?
I just thought we'd spend a lot more than this.
Oh, no. We got all the best brands too. Makita, Santex, Karcher, Nest.
Top job, top saving.
With over 15,000 trade-quality products at prices that are hard to beat, we're here to save you on every job. At toolstation.com and all 340 branches.
Now we move on to the First Division, and we'll kick off with a close encounter of the Ashton and Backwell kind. It was Ashton and Backwell taking on Wincanton Town.
Yeah, the big movers, Ashton and Backwell, now 7 wins from their last 8, so they really are coming up on the rails to make it up into those top few spots. But they had to come from behind in this one against Wincanton to gain the 2-1 win. Wincanton, obviously they suffered a pretty tough defeat last weekend, a pretty heavy one at that, but they made a good start at the Lance Scott Stadium on Saturday. Dan Wise putting them ahead from the spot after just 26 minutes. But Ashton, they managed to respond pretty well, and they grabbed a share of the half-time spoils thanks to a half volley from James White. And it was then White again during the second half, managed to complete the turnaround and give Ashton Backwell their 7th win from 8 games, a 2-1 victory over Wincanton.
Coming up on the rails, Tom. It's normally me that does the horse racing jokes with Wincanton.
There we go. Try my own.
Well done. Now then, before we move on to our next featured game, we are going to. I think we got a very special shout out for one Western League player. Corsham Town had an emphatic win at home to Bristol Telephones, and one player in particular really did cover himself in glory, didn't he?
Yeah, I think it was just worth mentioning. Josh Bright, bagging a hat-trick for Corsham, a 5-0 win over the Telephones. And I think a couple of late goals for Bright to wrap up the victory. But I think generally try and give the players a mention when they have a good afternoon in front of goal like that. So good win for Corsham and a good afternoon for Josh Bright.
Bright spark cuts off the phones.
There we go.
There's your tabloid headline.
Bingo.
Why that wasn't used in the Sunday Independent, I don't know. Anyway. Right then, moving on, and a clash of the Titans. Two of the top teams, two of the form teams in the First Division came together at Southfield Recreation Grounds. It was the Miners against Calne Town. A very good day at the office for the home side, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. So Calne, having had an excellent start to 2020, have now I think suffered two back-to-back defeats. A 2-0 loss away at Radstock, who themselves very much now in the title race in 6th, but they've got plenty of games in hand, as we'll look at in a minute, I'm sure. 2-0 win for the Miners. James Russell, obviously, always among the goals for them, it seems. He bagged another one, and there was also a goal from Morgan Marsh, helping Radstock reverse the 2-0 defeat that they suffered at the hands of Calne back in August. So a good afternoon for Radstock and a tough one for tabletop in Calne.
Well, I'll let you listeners into a little secret. The dark arts of the podcast every week, it's not always clear to me who we're going to be able to get on to do a manager's interview. In fact, it's not always possible to get the people that we want to get on. And frankly, with the fixtures that we had in the Premier Division this week, I could have had Ray Johnson from Hallen and I could have had the street manager as well, because those two were standout results. And it was really the fact that Parkway were in FA Vase action that meant I ended up speaking to Lee Hobbs. But I knew from the moment that the fixture list was published and the episode that we recorded last week on the podcast that there was only going to be one interview, and it was going to in the First Division, and it was going to come from either the manager of Radstock Town or the manager of Calne Town, to the victor, the spoils, and to Brett Partner. And it was very easy to start my conversation with Brett because, of course, I had to pick up on the fact that, Radstock owed Calne one after that opening day of the season defeat that they had to the Wiltshire side.
Yeah, it was a really good game to watch. Like you said, they beat us 2-0 at the start of the season, which I thought we were a little bit hard done by, but at the end of the day, the result counts, 2-0 to them. So, in a way, my team talk went along the lines of, remember what happened last game. We just played really, really well. But again, it was a really good game to watch for the neutral as well. So, to catch the Titans at the top.
So, Calne, they've obviously been doing very well this season. Can you see why they're currently top of the table?
Yeah, they've got three really good forward players. You can see why they can score goals. Defensively, they're pretty sound as well. They've got tall, strong lads. But I just did my research on them, studied their last 5-6 games, see what formations they played, what players they've got, and so on. So, literally, my team talks about half an hour of just talking about how to beat Calne. You can. They definitely should be up there. They're a fantastic team when you watch them play. But I think we just stifled them really when we played them.
Now, one of the things that interests me about both yourselves and Calne is that both clubs have put their trust in young managers. Both yourself and Ben Redford have proved that age is no barrier to success. Do you think that younger managers in the league have a more progressive outlook and a more progressive style of play, perhaps, than we're traditionally used to seeing in the Western League?
Yeah, I think football's changing. You've got all these modern coaches coming in now, and I think if you look at the league, the young managers are doing well. They're probably coaching more than usual. I think back in the old days when I was playing, it was less coaching, more of a manager type thing. You manage the game days instead of coaching, and kind of again well drilled. And I think these new style of managers, it'll be good for Western League football, and it'll be good for filter down through the other leagues as well. So now you're getting good managers for game days, but actually you're getting good coaches for the players, and I think you should start seeing the quality of the performances from probably every team improve.
Now, you're in 6th at the moment in the table, but you have got 4 games in hand over most of the teams in front of you. There is something to be said for having those points on the board, isn't there?
I always say we are the 6th best team at the moment. Regardless, we've got 4 games in hand. I know that would take us, I think, 5 points clear at the top, but again, you've still got to beat those teams in front of you when we do have to play them. Like I say, I'm just taking each game as it comes, and the players are similar to what I'm thinking as well. If we get too carried away with ourselves, that's when you start disappointing yourself. You get a loss, and if you get another one as well, and form might start to dip. But just take each game as it comes, and hopefully, we can win our games in hand to take us 5 points clear. But
for those of us who, of course, have been watching Radstock for a while, concerns exist about the potential for the side to be a bit Radstocky, and perhaps go on a bad run, which is why it's so important to get those points on the board. Of course, you came up against a very different Corsham outfit to the one that you played earlier in the season, and I was a little bit concerned that the omens might not have been good, but you've recovered very well from that defeat.
Yeah, I think we've got a really good, resilient team. Corsham, fair play to them. I wasn't there at the game. I was working for my club, Bristol City. But what I heard was that the first half was very dominant from our side. They sat back, and then second half they got us on the counter. Fair play to them. They won the game 2-0. It's installing the lads of, like I say, being resilient and ruthless, and again, taking each game, once the game's gone, it's done. We focus on the next game, and it's quickly how quickly can you put yourself back on track again. And like I say, since that game, I think we've got 4 clean sheets, and I think 4, which is really good. Can't ask more from the lads, really.
When we spoke earlier in the season, I know that top 4 finish and was certainly what you were planning for. I mean, now we've sort of got halfway through the season. With a business end, we've got over Christmas. What are you still focused on a promotion push this season, or is really now everything, given how well you've done so far, is it now really about a title bid?
Well, start of the season, it'd be nice to finish top 4, but my overall target really was to win the league, and that's from start of the season. And that was from when I first took over the season before. So I said, the season before it was just stabilise the squad, get the philosophy, get the right players in, and then go win the league next year. And Simon Wilkinson, the chairman, would back me up on that. Even at this stage now, looking at where we are, why can't we win the league? We're showing some fantastic football. Got some really good players. I'm confident in myself to prepare the players tactically, technically, and just keep doing my research and giving them information on the side of the pitch and encourage them as much as I can. I don't see why we can't win it. There's, everyone above us has got a chance as well, but I really do believe that, we have got a really good chance, especially our games in hand as well. But like I said, I don't want to speak too far in front, but you've got to take each game as it comes. And it's a hard one. I don't want to get carried away because I'm a very ambitious manager. I really want to win it. I'm very determined to win it as well. But I just need to keep my feet on the floor a little bit and take, like I keep saying, take each game as it comes.
Because if you do go up, the challenges of the Premier Division next season will be. I mean, they'll be they'll be very challenging indeed, won't they? Not just the quality, but of course the travel. It's going to represent a challenge for Radstock both on and off the pitch.
Yeah, it's no one really knows what's going to happen. There's ifs and buts and rumours going around. I built a team which is a lot of local lads, which is really good. But again, the travelling, the club's got to look at that. And if it is going to be a lot of away games, you've got to pay for maybe a coach, make it as professional as possible. I've made the club, along with my backroom staff and the players, we've tried to make it as professional as possible. And I'm hoping we can carry that on into next season with maybe a coach just to make it a bit more relaxed for the players and keep the players we've got. Maybe add a few more faces just to bolster the squad. But yeah, you're looking into the unknown with next season. Again, I don't want to look too far in front. I just want to focus on this season, win it, and then we're going from there.
Well, let's get back to the business in hand. Bristol Telephones, you've got them up next, and there's no point beating the top of the table side if you can't beat the side at the bottom.
Exactly. I think it's just as a hard game as playing Carl. To be honest, I've played telephones quite a few years, and this season we had a tough time down there. They played really good football, and again, they're such a resilient team when they're on it. But again, they lost 5-0 against Caution, but again, they might not have a lot of players, whatever the situation was down there. But you've just got to beat whatever's in front of you, and I've always said, it's 11 v 11, anything can happen in football. You've just got to want it more. You've got to stick to what I tell you and exactly the same tactics, and you'll do the business. If you start going to play your game, or you're really not up for it, or you're not focused on the game, regardless who you're playing, you're not going to give 100%. I'm going to give the chance for the teams to get back in. But Wednesday, I think, will be a good test for us, and I think it'll be good for the squad as well. It'd be nice to see other players get involved. We've got a few players come back from injury. It'd be nice to get them out as well. I would treat this exactly the same as the Calm game, because you can't take it for granted.
If we look a little bit ahead into March, that's going to be an interesting month. You've got Longwell Green away on the 3rd, and then 4 days later you take on Welton Rovers in the Coalfield Classico.
Yeah. It's Longwell's going to be a really big game for us. Again, there's 3 games where I thought it's going to be our biggest games. Calm was one, Longwell was another one, and I think we've got Wales second last game of the season. So those 3 games are going to be massive for us. No disrespect to other team, each team's going to be really hard to break down, but those are 3 for us because they're around us and completely to what we want. Those are nice win games. Welton's it's a hard one, it's a derby. Anything can happen in those games. It's a test now for my players to keep focused. Our focus is on this title, and it's just another game. It's not a derby. It's just another game. We just got to beat them and carry on with our run. Obviously, for the fans and everything like that, yes, we want to win it. We want Norton to be red, as they say, not green. So yeah, it's going to be a must-win game for that, but not just because it's a derby. It's because we want to win the league. We've got a fantastic load of players who feel exactly the same, and they take each game as a derby for whoever we're playing. So it's not going to be much different, really, for our mindset.
And my thanks to Brett for his time. Now, moving on, and our next featured game is Sherborne Town. They were at home to an Almondsbury side who'd started the week in very impressive style with a win over the league leaders. Yeah,
indeed, and so not the easiest game on paper for Sherborne, but they managed to come through it, and a 3-1 win at Raleigh Grove for Sherborne over Almondsbury, as I say, had to come from behind. Almondsbury, a little uptick in form recently, which is good to see. And they did go ahead. Greg Parr firing home from the penalty spot following a foul on Stuart Alexander. But then, Ashley Clark managed to score just before half-time to get Sherborne on level terms. And then after the second half, they pushed on. Clark scoring another header to make it 2-1 10 minutes into the second half. And then they got a penalty of their own, the Zebras. And that was Josh Williams who took that one home. And so, a 5th consecutive league victory for Sherborne.
And finally, in the First Division, Wells City, they really have been one of the form sides of the moment. They took on Portishead Town, and it really was an emphatic win for the Somerset side, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. But it took a while for them to get going. First half stoppage time before they broke the deadlock. So nearly 45 minutes of goalless action there. But once Harry Foster had broken through, Wells really did push on in the second half. Foster himself having an incredible season for the First Division side, and plenty to look forward to for him and the club over the next 20 or so games. I think they're a team that going to be tough to stop. On Saturday it was also goals. Tom Hill doubling the lead 10 minutes into the second half, and then it was Ross McCurlane, who's recently rejoined the club. He's doing really well again, and then Charlie Crook, who seems to score more often than not. They both struck in the closing stages, rounding out a comfortable 4-0 home win.
Moving on to the fixtures taking place on Saturday the 15th of February. We start in the Premier Division as we always do. And Tom, what's your pick of the pops?
Gone for Plymouth Parkway versus Bridgewater. So obviously we've talked quite a bit about Parkway. It'll be interesting to see how they do getting back into league action. They've only had 2 league defeats so far this season. One of those came at the hands of Bridgewater back in August. So they'll be wanting a little bit of maybe not revenge, so to speak, but yeah, they'll be wanting to get one back on Bridgewater, and obviously it's a big game for them in the title race for Parkway. So good. Looks like a good game down there. Another big one at Plymouth Park on Saturday afternoon.
Well, there's plenty of good games on offer in the Premier Division this weekend. And I mean, one of the games that caught my eye was Keynsham Town. They're at home to Bitton. Of course, it'll be very interesting to see whether Bitton can keep their FA Vase form going in the league. Keynsham never an easy place to go, despite the fact that they find themselves towards the bottom part of the table. But I'm going to go for Chipping Sodbury against Cadbury Heath. These are two sides that are well and truly in the bottom half of the table. Chipping Sodbury lost at the weekend, but I think that we've heard from their manager this season on the podcast. We know that they can turn things around, and Cadbury Heath on their day can be a match for anybody. So I think that'll be a competitive tie that both sides feel that they can get something from. Now, moving on to the First Division, Tom, and what's tickled your fancy?
So I've gone for Cheddar versus Wells. A big game. Wells probably out of the. So yeah, found a little bit of interesting statistic that every team in the top 8, so all top 8 as of Monday evening when we record this. Obviously, I think there's a couple of midweek games which might affect league placings, but all of the top 8 are away from home on Saturday afternoon. Which it's amazing how that manages to work itself out, but that's the way it is. So Cheddar in 9th, hosting Wells is probably, you'd say on paper, the most difficult game for one of those top sides. So that's and we know Cheddar after last year's excursions that they're a good side on their day. So I think that's the game I'm probably looking forward to the most on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, they were pretty ruthless against Devices at the weekend. Really controlled that game throughout, and wins like that are only going to give them confidence, and they're going to need confidence against Wells City because we know they're one of the better sides. But I think that's a really good shout, Tom. Two other sides that we talk about winning regularly, we've already done one of them, Ashton and Blackwell. They're away to Bishop's Lydeard. Bishop's Lydeard, we know they're a pretty handy outfit on their day, so I think that that game in the First Division will be pretty tasty as well. Now then, we've nearly exhausted our time here on this week's podcast, but we do have just enough time to cast our eye down the league tables. We did do the goal scorers last week. We're going to have a look at the league tables, and not a great deal of movement at the top of the Premier Division, where the top 2 were in FA Vase action at the weekend.
Yeah, indeed. So we've still got Bradford played 21, 55 points leading the way. Parkway with a game in hand, 20 games played. They're on 52 points, so Parkway haven't played half of their games. So obviously 40 in total for these teams. So we're about halfway through. So 100 points definitely on the cards for a couple of sides. But we have got movement up into 3rd. Hallen, excellent run of form as we've discussed. They are now 3rd. They've played 25, so a couple more than the top 2, and they're on 52 points, equal with Parkway. And then you've got Shepton Mallet. They're tucked in 4th, 23 games played, they've got 48 points, and then you've got a couple of Devon sides who suffered maybe surprising defeats on the weekend. Tavistock and Exmouth both 47 points, and they've both played 21, so they've got games in hand on the two sides ahead of them. But probably need to bounce back quickly from defeats on Saturday.
And if we look at the bottom of the Premier Division, really there are 4 sides here that are effectively cut adrift, I would say. Odd down at the bottom, they played 25, they've got 10 points, 2 points above them. Wellington played 27 on 12 points. Chipping Sodbury Town just above them, 26 played, 16 points, although of course Chipping Sodbury have moved off the bottom. And then 1 point above them is Bridport. They've played 25 and they're on 17 points. In 17th place is Cribbs. They've got 23 points, so that's 5 points clear of Bridport in 18th. Now we look at the top of the First Division, and Calne Town still sit at the peak of the First Division, Tom.
They do, only just. Goal difference by 1 is deciding it at the moment. It's very, very, very tight. I think it's tighter than it was last time when we just spoke, and that was as tight as anything as well. So it really is difficult to pick where this is going. But Calne, 24 games played, 16 wins, 50 points, with a goal difference of 24, should I say as well. And then we've got Sherborne, obviously excellent run of form, 24 games played, just like Calm. 50 points, just like Calm. But they're on 23, their goal difference. So that is one behind. But yeah, we've still, they've each got 14 games left. So I don't think they'll be losing any sleep over their goal difference quite yet. You've got third place Wales, who we've discussed, on an excellent run of form as well. And they've actually lost less than the top two, interestingly, but they've also played 24, which is nice. They're on 48 points. And likewise, Longwell Green played 24 and 48 points in fourth. So 2 points covering the top four. They've all played the same amount of matches, so incredibly difficult to pick where that's going. And I think we've got to mention the next two sides as well, definitely in this title race. Ashton and Backwell played 23, so they've got a game in hand, and they're on 45 points, so just 3 behind third place Wales. And then Radstock, more games in hand than the others, so they're on 20 games played, so they've got 4 in hand on the top 4 sides, and they're on 43 points. And obviously having, they're doing pretty well at the moment, aren't they? So 43 points, 5 behind third place, 7 points off top. In theory, they win their games in hand, they go top. So those are the top 6, and that's probably about as tight as it's going to look for the rest of the season. But I can't pick it, and I can't wait to see how it plays out.
No, absolutely. 2 statistics that really stand out to me there, Tom. The goal difference for Ashton and Backwell United. 2. Scored 38, conceded 36. So, I mean, that just goes to show the small margins. But as you've said so many times on the podcast, they've been on a really good run. So, just goes to show how important that is. And the other thing we have to say is, I mean, Cairn have had a couple of difficult results in the last in the last week, really, losing to Almondsbury and Radstock. But in their 24 games that they've played, they've conceded only 18 goals, which I think is a real credit to the defensive unit at Cairn Town, and obviously is a massive reason why they're still top of the table. So congratulations to them. We will cast our eye down at the other end, the strongest end of the First Division, holding the rest of them up. Bristol Telephone still at the bottom. They played 22. They're on 8 points. 4 points above them are Bishop Sutton. They played 23 games. They're on 12. 3 points above them, Devizes Town. God bless them. And then Welton Rovers in 17th. They've played 24. They're on 22 points. So really the bottom 3 are some way adrift of Welton Rovers in 17th. So that's the leagues covered. Before we move on, there is the small matter of the teams of the month that have been announced for January, and I can say that 2 teams that have featured quite heavily in this week's podcast have won those awards. Plymouth Parkway are your Premier Division Team of the Month, and Cairn Town picked up the trophy for January in the First Division. So that's my administrative duties over and done with. Tom, thank you very much indeed for your time and your excellent bulletin as always. And as we do, just in case anybody who's listening to this would like to have a look at the bulletin, you can find it on the Western League website. There's a tab along the top which takes you to the most recent bulletin where you can download it as a Word and PDF format. So yeah, that should be up every Sunday lunchtime or so, looking back and obviously the games that have taken place, and then also looking ahead at what's to come. Excellent stuff. Well, Tom, thank you very much for your time, and as always, I've enjoyed your company here on the Tool Station, Western League Podcast.